Thank you, Secretary Johnson. 4 days after the bombing, President Bill Clinton arrived in Oklahoma City to console. He brought with him a letter from a young widow and a mother of 3 whose husband was murdered when Pan Am Flight 103 was shot down. This is what the woman asked the president to share with us during that first memorial prayer service. The anger you feel is valid, but you must not allow yourself to be consumed by it. The hurt you feel must not be allowed to turn into hate, but instead into the search for justice. The loss you feel must not paralyze your own lives. Instead, you must try to pay tribute to your loved ones by continuing to do all the things they left undone, thus ensuring that they did not die in vain. He went on to say, "You have lost too much, but you have not lost everything. And we have certainly not lost America, and we will stand with you." And stand with us he did, as we began to heal our broken hearts. 5 years later, he, along with 20,000 others, helped dedicate the outdoor symbolic memorial on April 19, 2000, the 5th anniversary of the bombing. His support of the memorial and museum continues today as a member of our National Advisory Board. He provides not only historic perspective, but also the passion and commitment of someone who bore witness to both the tragedy and the hope that our memorial represents for future generations. In 2010, we were pleased to honor him with the Reflections of Hope Award for his work in helping Oklahoma City transform following the bombing, and for his international peace work during his presidency and since. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to Oklahoma City the 42nd President of the United States, President Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Susan, for the introduction and for your service. I want to thank Kerry Watkins for driving this whole memorial and museum project for 20 years. It seems like ever since I left office, I just sort of show up when Kerry calls. I sort of do what she tells me to do, and so far it hasn't gotten me in any trouble. I want to thank Secretary Johnson and Director Comey and all the other federal officials who are here. Thank you so much, Governor Fallin, for what you said. Thank you, Senator Lankford, Congressman Lucas, Mayor Cornett, Mayor Norick, thank you. I loved hearing you relive those times. And I want to thank Governor Keating. Most of you don't know this, but I've known Frank Keating longer than you have. We met when I was an 18-year-old freshman at Georgetown, America's oldest Jesuit university. I was a Southern Baptist, and they asked me what I was doing there. I said I hoped I could figure it out before I had to leave. The first encounter we had, we were having a partisan disagreement over a campus issue. It continued from 1964 or 65 for 30 years until Oklahoma City. He and Kathy were magnificent, as was the mayor, as were all of you. And for a whole country, you burned away all the petty squabbles in which we engaged, leaving only our basic humanity. I mostly came here to thank you today. I prepared for this day yesterday in New York by taking Hillary to see our daughter and son-in-law and my about to be 7-month-old grandchild. And Hillary and I bathed her and fed her and put her to bed. And I looked at her in that crib so I could remember how you felt, those of you who lost your loved ones. I want to first say, I know how hard this is. When I came to Oklahoma City, 4 days after the bombing, I wanted to see the family of Al Witcher, the Secret Service agent who perished because he had been on my detail. And he wanted to come here because he thought it would be such a wonderful place to raise a family. The new director of the Secret Service, Joe Clancy, is here. 20 years ago, he was on my detail too. And he advanced my trip to Oklahoma City. When you strip away all the little things that divide us, it's important to remember how tied we are and how much we, all Americans, owe Oklahoma City. People came here from around the country to help you. One of them was chief of the New York City Fire Department named Ray Downey. I met him here. Almost 6 years later, lo and behold, I was living in New York with my foundation, and Hillary was a senator, and Ray Downey lost his life on 9/11, trying to get people out of the Twin Towers. And when they fell, among the first people to show up to help were the workers from Oklahoma City. And I can tell you, nobody has ever forgotten it. So I wanted to say thank you. I think of Oklahoma City sometimes as a tale of two trees. That one, who proved that you're tough and strong and endure. And a dogwood that Hillary and I planted on the south lawn of the White House on my way down here that fateful day 20 years ago. Dogwoods for all of us are the sign of springtime and rebirth. For those of us who are Christians, they are also a sign of new beginnings and second chances. So I thank you. Nelson Mandela, who died a couple of years ago, was a great friend of mine for 20 years. He taught me a lot of things from his 27 years in prison. He taught me that in the face of tragedy, evil, and loss, there are only two things that always remain, that can never be taken away: your mind and your heart. We must decide what to do with them, no matter what happens. Oklahoma City, you have chosen well. For 20 years, you have honored the memories of your loved ones. You have inspired us with the power of your renewal. You have reminded us that we should all live by the Oklahoma standard: service, honor, kindness. In doing these things, you had to choose to affirm our common humanity in the face of mad, crazy people who think the differences are all that matter, enough to dehumanize innocent bystanders they never met. You had to choose far-sighted love over blind hatred. You had to choose to redeem your terrible losses by beginning again. The whole world needs you now. There have been smaller examples of still significant number of innocents killed here in America. but in remote villages in northern Nigeria, in ancient historic cities in Iraq and Syria, and other places throughout the globe, even in Paris, France. There are still people who somehow think they can matter more and they can make a statement by killing innocents, snuffing out possibility, that they can somehow bend the arc of history. They're wrong as long as people like you make the right decisions with your mind and your heart. I wish everyone could come and see this model for a new century of human interdependence. You reclaimed the river, revived the downtown, reoriented your city toward a brighter future. And yes, by doing the right things, by just living by the Oklahoma standard, you grew faster than ever before, and you grew far more prosperous. A breathtaking increase in per capita income in these 20 years. But the material gains were incidental. Every family here who lost someone would give it all up in a heartbeat to have their loved ones back. The progress came because of your values, the culture you embraced, because of what you decided to do together. You freely embraced the choices of a mind and a heart that is blessed. When I was president, I spent $3 billion of your money to sequence the human genome. It's been worth a lot to us. We've gotten a couple $100 billion in benefits out of it, and we're closing in on cures for cancer and a lot of other problems. But the most important thing we found is that every non-age-related difference we can see in this vast crowd is lodged in 1/2 of 1% of our genome. The good Lord made us just different enough to keep it interesting, and alike enough to require us to make the choices Oklahoma City made. Not because you forgot the loss of loved ones, but because you remembered. Not because the pain and loss and love have worn away with time, but because they endure. And the only way you can redeem the loved ones is to live by the standard you have branded. It has been magnificent to behold. I urge you never to forget it. I thank you for the privilege of doing what I could to help, of being a witness to your triumphs, to have played a small part in what happened here in the aftermath of that terrible day. It is an honor I will treasure as long as I live. All I ask is that you never forget that you made the right choice. God bless you.
I don't think this means enough, but thank you, President Clinton. Thank you for your compassion at a time when we needed you most, and your enduring support of the Oklahoma City National Memorial. Thank you so much. For those who were in Oklahoma City on April 19th, 1995, for those who witnessed it, and for those who see the impact of this National Memorial and Museum, the Oklahoma Standard, as you've heard over and over and over again today, is what shines through even 20 years later. Joining us today is the chair of the Oklahoma Standard Campaign, Oklahoma City Thunder Executive Vice President and General Manager, Sam Presti.